Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 68. My package has a first name. Recorded live Monday, November 19th, 2023, live from iTechGear Central. Joining us this week, we've got all of the usual suspects. First and foremost, the former contributing writer over at Gear Diary and currently the host of the Linux Sling Tech Show and living in the Retro Arcade podcast, Brother Joel. How be ye?
I be fine after driving 5, almost 6 hours today from Roanoke, Virginia.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. Glad you got back safe and sound, and welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you. Also joining us from way up north, in right next to the Great White North, actually. Former contributing editor over at Gear Diary and Pocket Now, Mr. Chris Gavula. How are you, sir?
We're even technically north of the Great White North, as you know from having been here many years ago yourself.
Many years, yes.
So, technically speaking, we are north of the Great White North.
Yes.
But yeah, the frigid north.
Yes.
No, happy to be here.
Good deal. And last but certainly never least, the former co-owner of WUGNET Publications, Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin. How are you, sir?
I am fine, guys. All I have to say, some things in life can be summed up in a single sentence. With that, the older I get, the more I believe that Forrest Gump was a very brilliant man.
Very true. Very true. So,
Larry, I want to know how you got to afford 2 titles.
Dr. Mr.
Yes.
I don't get 2 titles.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, congratulations on them.
And you know what else we should
I didn't
be
pay extra for them. I know that.
You know what else we should be congratulating people over?
What's that?
Out in Cupertino.
Why
Apple
Cupertino?
is finally going to adopt, after much hassling, wailing, and
gnashing,
and they're going to adopt RCS for messaging, which I thought was pretty cool. But from what I understand, though, this is not your mother's RCS. So
yeah, and
it's
so for folks who aren't familiar with it, RCS is sort of the spiritual successor to SMS and MMS that we use on standard text phones
services.
Correct. And in its current most popular incarnation is actually a Google fork of the standard, because nobody else was pushing the standard. So Google got up on its own to try to push the standard, and what they're doing now, they've been spending time trying to get carriers to use it, and many have complied and are using it. But what's interesting about all of these standards, SMS and MMS and RCS, is that outside of the US, nobody uses them or cares.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. So Apple making this statement, I think we all have kind of wondered why, and I think it's not from pressure from anybody, except maybe the fact that the EU is probably going to do something legally within the next year to sort of force the issue.
Right. The quote that is on, or that was made by Apple, was later next year we will be adding support for RCS Universal Profile. The standard is currently published by the GSM Association. We believe the RCS Universal Profile will offer a better interoperability experience when compared to SMS or MMS. This will work alongside iMessage, which will continue to be the best and most secure messaging experience for Apple users. And from what I understand, because there was some question also after this statement came out from them as to, what colors will the bubbles be? Will they be blue bubbles? Will they be yellow bubbles? Will they be
knowing Google, they'll be multicolored bubbles.
You never know. But according to Apple, not only do green bubbles and blue bubbles want to be together, these bubbles will continue to be green. Blue bubbles will strictly be for iMessage between Apple users.
And it's supposed to be understanding is it's supposed to be an indication of the fact that the encryption in RCS is not quite as strong as the encryption in iMessage, and they want you to understand that what you're getting isn't exactly the same thing.
Correct.
So that's theoretically what's going on here.
Correct. They want you to understand that all bubbles are not created equal.
And I think the other thing that's important is for those of you who have an iMessage group today, where a multi-group kind of message going on today, and you get somebody from Android with RCS, even after they've integrated RCS, you're still going to break the group.
Still
the way it gets broken today. It's not going to change.
Recently.
You still got to create a new group that includes everybody, so that basically the group will change from being an iMessage-based group to being an RCS-based group.
Yes.
So that still has to happen. So that hasn't gone away. So I'm not sure that any of the quote-unquote underlying issues go away for folks, from all the folks. Some folks, yes, some folks, no. So it's still an interesting concession. It's still an interesting direction to move, but it's not as complete as people might think. So
that is
should be interesting. Should be interesting.
Is correct.
So, and when did they say they were doing this? Next year, late next year, early next year?
Sometime later next year.
Later next year.
Later in 24. All right. So
well, that's really vague.
Yes. So there you go. So sometime in 24. All right. So I mean, it's interesting that they're doing this because back in September of last year, 2022, Tim Cook had said, RCS is not a priority for us. All right. I don't hear our users asking that we put a lot of energy into this at this time.
Yeah.
All right.
I still think they feel that way though, don't you?
I'm certain that they do because iMessage offers stronger encryption and it does all the things already. All right.
I don't think this again, I think we said at the beginning, I don't think that has anything to do with what users clamoring for it, because I don't think they are.
No, I don't think a lot of Apple users probably don't even know or care. They probably don't even know that iMessage is potentially encrypted. They don't even know what encryption. They probably don't even know what encryption means. All right, So I mean, the thing is, it is a standard. I think it still is important that Apple supports it for more reasons than the stupid bubbles.
Yes, but it does offer an encrypted messaging experience. It may not be as strong as iMessage.
But I agree, it's still important and better image quality when you're using it for transferring to people between Android and iOS users. I think it's all very important. Yep, yes. I think it's very important.
Yes.
Right. And what I do think needs to happen is, though, with some of this stuff is iMessage does a lot of things that makes life more difficult if you're moving back and forth between iOS and Android.
As some people do.
Yes, some people do that. Not everyone just stays on their iPhone forever.
True enough.
So I mean, and I think it would go. Yeah. Here's my position: is I'm Android, okay. I might like to go get an iPhone 16 Pro when it comes out, possibly, or maybe the 15 Pro. All right. Sure. But the thing is if I decide, and once I've gone through my 2 years with that phone, if I've decided that I'm done with it and I want to go back, is it going to be easy for me to switch back? And that's what stopped me from going forward. Probably.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And
I don't disagree.
And that could end up causing Apple to lose potential sales, even if it's only for a 2-year cycle.
True.
So I mean, who knows? I know people. There are some people that are insane that will switch back and forth between Android and iPhone all the time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know who that might be.
In this group,
nobody knows what you're talking about.
All right,
but I don't think what this particular integration is going to fix that problem.
It's not.
I just don't see that happening, and that's the thing. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, Apple caved." Well, not exactly.
They didn't. They did, and they didn't. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah,
you got to take it for what it is and look at what they're really doing. Are going to agree
I think
whatever they agreed to do.
Apple has done enough to stop the hue and cry. That's it.
And
That's
Well, I was
exactly
gonna
it.
say exactly it, because that's where I'm at. I'm like, is it so hard for Apple to add this to iMessage? And I guess the answer is going to be no.
Well, remember though, it's not exactly an iMessage. So today, iMessage and SMS are actually kind of separate things. iMessage as a client is not iMessage as
in
the
the
service,
same app,
right?
though.
But
Same
they're
app,
under the
though, so
same
it doesn't
shell.
really matter.
So
right.
to me, all they're doing is throwing it under the same shell. You're not really integrating it into iMessage per se. It's just going to be a failover choice, just like SMS, MMS is today.
Well, then
so
isn't it integrating it into iMessage? It's
in
not
the
a
client,
core. I think
in the
what you're
client,
saying is it's not a
in the
core
client, not
function
the
of
server.
iMessage.
And it's not going to be in the server. In the service.
Same house, two different rooms.
Well,
Right.
you said it the right way. It's a failover point, right? If for whatever reason, and messages will do this, and iMessage will do this if it cannot get a secure connection to the person that you are trying to message to, it will bounce between iMessage and SMS.
What it will do now is if it can't build an iMessage connection to who you want to go to, it will then try to build an RCS connection, and failing that, it'll go to MMS SMS.
Right.
So that's kind of how it's going to, and again, to you, that'll seem relatively seamless, except for the fact that you can't manually say, oh, this one's going to be an RCS message. It'll just do that if you're going to an Android user.
Right.
It's, so.
Right.
It's still, that's
only
what, so it's still
indication that you get that this has happened is that the bubble turns green. All
Right.
right.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. Now
You can kind of think of it. It's kind of like an IoT device that's trying to switch between 2.4 and 5 gigs on your internet, on your Wi-Fi.
Right.
It really is. So basically, yes, it improves things in the sense that it will get better images between users. We'll get some better things between users. So it does improve things, and you'll still be able to get a theoretically encrypted connection under some circumstances.
I'm still happy about it, quite frankly.
I am too. I think it's a step in the right direction. I agree with it. But
it is.
This whole idea that Apple suddenly just turned over a new leaf is just idiotic, because it's not
entirely true. Well, it's not entirely
true.
It's not entirely false either. So I mean,
true.
But it's again, it's not because they've had this change of heart. It's because they're getting potential legal pressure.
Yes.
That's the only reason they're doing this, as far as I can tell.
And I quite
frankly,
frankly, I think if they really wanted to hide things, they can just make all the bubbles the same fucking color and move on.
Pardon your French.
Sorry for pardoning my French. Yes,
but I will say this. All right.
I'm really glad you added this afterwards, Chris.
Thank you. The one thing though that really bothers me is that the bubbles will still be green. All right. One of the things one of the things that happens is the color change, and that indicates to you that for whatever reason, the encryption is not there. All right. And there's something going on between you and
this
that you're trying to
I would rather
and this is why people aren't
right.
I would say, and this is why people, because of the stupid confusion, is why people are in the other countries are switching to other apps like Telegram and other things,
Telegram
like that.
or WhatsApp
because guess what? Everything's encrypted on Telegram, and you don't have the question.
Right.
But, going back to something Chris said.
But you know what? But you know what, Joel? That's no different than two iMessage users talking to each other. It's no different.
Correct. But
it's really the same thing. You've just chosen a different app. That's all.
Right. Mm-hmm. What were you going to say, Larry?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, thinking back for those of us who've been Apple for many, many years, the only thing I can think in all these years that ever makes the mountains change color in Cupertino is lawyers.
Yep. Isn't that true?
Isn't that? It's true. It's a true fact.
But I would rather, in this particular case, in this case, I really wish if they were going to keep everything separate still like they are, I think it would be a lot clearer, if that's what they're going for, to use 3 colors so that we understand that RCS is encrypted, but it's not the same.
Yes.
I get that.
That's exactly what I was going for. That's exactly what I was going for. Yes. I totally agree. I would like to see a third color, whether it's yellow or orange or red, or whatever it is. I don't
Right.
care. All right.
Yeah, me too.
But I would like to see some other kind of a color just to let me know. All right. So
And
green
this
is
is a year off.
SMS, MMS, yellow is RCS, or pick a color, right?
Whatever. Yeah.
And blue is iMessage encryption.
But
so
you know,
great.
this is 6 months to a year off or whatever it is.
Yep.
Who knows? They
Yep.
may change
it
between
certainly
then and
could
now.
change. Could certainly change. I'm certain it's not. It's probably half a line of code. All right, to get
Right.
the bubbles
Yeah.
to change.
I agree.
So
Yep.
eh,
And probably
so
2 lines of code just to get RCS to work.
probably. Probably. So moving on, I also heard something else out of Cupertino that I thought was pretty cool. We are citing a 9 to 5 Mac story for this. Apple is going to extend the free satellite SOS service coverage for its newer phones. So I thought that was kind of cool. All right. So they're extending the free usage period for emergency SOS satellite features for iPhone 14 users. Previously, Apple gave iPhone 14 customers 2 free years after device activation, which would have begun expiring this time next year. So they are extending that for another 2 years.
Oh, I thought they were extending it I thought it was just 1 more year, and so that it was going to expire roughly when the iPhone 15 stuff expires. That's what I thought I read.
According to 9 to 5 Mac,
I believe it's 2 years.
iPhone
2 years?
14 users
Got
will
it.
now be able to use the service for free for another 2 years.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
All right.
They haven't revealed
From
how
now,
much,
though, yeah.
right?
Never
They
mind.
haven't revealed how much it will charge for emergency SOS after the free period is up. All right, but at least now you get it 4 years. All right.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty generous.
that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
right.
cool, and I'm waiting for this to just be included. Period.
I'm
for
with you,
not,
Joel.
For not just Android, or Apple. I mean, but for Android and everyone,
Right.
because it's an important thing. Like, here's the thing: like, when I was driving through sections of Virginia and southern West Virginia, there was definitely times where I was not in range of a tower, guaranteed.
Yes.
So I mean, and what happens if I got in an accident there?
And even then, if you were in range because of the mountains, you may not necessarily get service. So
yeah, and pursuant to that, why should an Apple hiker have this and an Android hiker doesn't have it? You know,
right?
Yes, I agree.
Right.
I mean, to me,
it's a safety issue.
It is a safety issue. Now, granted, if I'm really that worried about it, I wouldn't even bother with the app an iPhone thing. I would buy a Garmin inReach.
They're thinking about those who just haul tail up into the mountains. They aren't even thinking about these things until they get lost. And then
Well, you know where you used to see a lot of this kind of, I lost my cell phone signal. I didn't know what was going on. You'd see it in Southern California where you're driving over the mountains just to get into the valley kind of thing. And there's periods where you lose it, and there's canyons nearby, but you're still in the city, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, this is well thought. Now those days are much better now than they were back then. But the thought is, there's a lot of people that do this. They drive out and they don't realize they've gone into a kind of a no zone for a cell phone, and there's still patches of that around even this country. So yeah, I'm glad to see this. I'd love to see it extend. I don't know if Apple would extend it or who they're partnered with for the service. I forget. But they ought to extend this. I mean, this whole thing ought to extend. Now, I know there was something relating to Space Link that just got pushed off and delayed. So some service for other things aren't going to go on. So I don't know who was tied to that one. But one would hope that Apple can make a deal with somebody and get this kind of
or
anybody.
And I'd like to see it go
Google
further too. Like, I'd like to see this thing go further to great, you can make a communication, but what happens is if your communication is, hey, I need a life flight. Okay, so is Apple going to insure you for the cost of that life flight? Guess who does?
No.
Garmin and their service does. The Garmin inReach devices and other devices very similar to them.
If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you break a toe or whatever it is, you rip a nail and you need or you break an arm, break a leg, whatever it is, and you can't get out from wherever it is, Garmin's going to pay for the life flight.
not all of it, but
Okay.
a portion of it.
A
Yeah,
portion.
it insures a portion of the rescue and the SAR kind of thing.
Interesting.
So it's not 100%. And how I know this is I watch this YouTube channel, Homemade Wanderlust, and then the name of the hiker, her hiker name is Dixie, and her name is Jess, and I don't know what her last name is because she just got married. But
Okay.
but she had her Apple Watch was telling her that she was an AFib
Uh-huh.
and she was feeling crappy, right?
Okay.
Like really crappy, like the phone, like she couldn't make the rest of her hike or even turn around to get back to where her car was.
Wow.
So she pressed the SOS button on her Garmin InReach. They life flighted her out, and now she has about $60,000 still, even after the Garmin insurance of life flight / medical stuff. So because of course she didn't have her completely health insurance rise either.
So, but InReach, understand that InReach is not a free service just for buying the Garmin product.
It is not a free service.
You have to pay for a subscription. So there is more to it than that. But
yes.
You do pay for, I think it's like $12 a month or something like that. You know, it's up for their subscription.
And it's going to be far more reliable. I think it'll be far more reliable than the Apple stuff is, probably just because they've been doing it for far longer.
Yeah, but I would say I would agree with you in the sense that if Apple were to start charging a fee for this stuff, they ought to do something like that as well. You know, but that's only if they start charging us a real service, a fee for it. If they're still free, I say free, but part of the price of the device when you buy it, so to speak. Right. It's going to be harder to do that. So it'll be interesting. But it'd be nice to see it. I totally agree. It'd be nice to see it.
Yep. I'm not holding my breath, but
yeah. Fair enough. Because
then I would need a life flight anyway.
Then you need the life flight, but I'm bummed. Yeah. They'll be here all week.
There you go. So I'm very glad that this is being offered, and I'm glad that they are extending the free period for an extra 2 years. So you're going to get 4 years worth of coverage, which most people is going to be about when they were, if they do keep their phone, they're not going to keep it past 4 years. Most first world folks anyway probably won't. So that's kind of cool that they are going to go ahead and extend that out.
Yep. One more correction on the InReach stuff. That's That is an extra cost for that search and rescue search, and an additional $39 a year.
A year.
Got it.
Even for besides the a year.
So basically, you're paying for the insurance. They don't just give it to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
It still seems reasonable to me, dude. It still seems reasonable.
If you're if you're hiking the Appalachian Trail, is definitely reasonable.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
absolutely. Well, you know what I also thought was kind of reasonable, and with the holiday season being kicking off this week, it's the holiday season already, kids. My God,
yes, it really is. Although I started seeing Christmas lights after Halloween, so don't even get me started on that.
Well, we put ours up today only because the weather is nice. But
are you lighting them?
That's why a lot of people. But that's why a lot of people have done it. That's why a lot of people did it early this year.
Yeah. It just in case it got cold. But did you know that Google Maps has got a holiday update? Joel,
soon.
What's going on with this, man?
Soon.
So there's a lot of things. Yeah, and it's not out yet. Because I don't really see any. This is just from the Google. The Tom's Hardware was the initial article, but I'm actually looking at the actual Google post on this. So they're adding some features to Google Maps. The first one is new transit route recommendations.
Okay.
So if you're in it doesn't really help you if you're in a city that doesn't have mass transit. Columbus does, but where I'm living, it's kind of pointless because it doesn't come anywhere near my house.
I was going to say because you're out in technically what was the middle of nowhere, but
yeah, it's not anymore.
Not anymore, but I mean it was.
But right, but and that's going to be available in over 80 cities around the world, including Berlin, Boston, London, Madrid, New York City, Paris, Singapore, Sydney, Tokyo, and Toronto.
What about Chicago, man?
I know, right? Well, don't you already have? You have good routing. So anyway, but that's
we have
one
an
feature.
extensive public transit system.
You do, and I've wrote it before. So,
Mm-hmm.
Number 2. Now this can be useful if you and your friends are of the techie type. Now, I love it if my family would use something like this, but you can plan and collaborate with friends with updates to lists. So,
what does that mean exactly?
Well, you can, if you're planning a get together, or maybe you're going to different places, you can all add all these different places to a list within Google Maps, I guess.
Gotcha.
So, at least that's what hopefully I'm not wrong, because I kind of skimmed that. But and you can also mark them with emojis, which I'm like,
our favorite.
All right, I mean, I'm in my 50s. I don't care about emojis. Get off my lawn. The same thing goes with bringing holiday fun to the community with emoji reactions. So you can add an emoji to your review on Google Maps. Oh, all right, whatever. Planning winter travel. Now, this one's probably a little bit more useful, especially if you have an EV. Plan your winter travel with eco-friendly routing and more ways to find charging stations. So, actually, the interesting thing here is I was parked at a light when I was down in Virginia, and I looked on the map, and hey, right on the map said there's an EVgo station right across the street, and I looked, and yep, there it is. So, I don't know if this is actually that feature. Probably
and it won't
not.
It won't tell you if half the stations are not working.
Well, that's the thing it won't tell you. So, and then
you hear that a lot lately.
Now you can search for stops along your drive for last minute errands, like grab it, like you're on your way, and somebody decides, oh, we need whipped cream for the pumpkin pie. So you can tell somebody, and they can see if they can get whipped cream on Thanksgiving Day, which hopefully you don't. Because trust me, you don't want to go near a grocery store on Thanksgiving. Anyway,
that's true.
Save money on gas so you can spend more on holiday cheer. In addition to searching for whatever you need along the route, it's also easy to search for savings at the gas pump. Just search for gas prices in Google Maps, and you can see the price of the fuel at the stations nearby. That's actually really cool. That's something I'd probably use. Number 7, avoid tolls and busy roads so that you can stay merry all the drive long. Expenses can add up quickly around the holidays, so why let the savings stop at the gas pump? Whether you want to avoid toll roads or prefer to stay off the highway.
They didn't already have that?
That's what I thought.
I thought it was already in there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe they're just saying stuff that it already has.
But things that are useful for the holidays, I guess. Let's take it that way.
Yep. But then tap and go with contactless payments to easily commute to busy holiday events. I guess this is saying that if the transit system supports multi-tap, it'll tell you. I don't know, because I was trying to think how this is a function of Google Maps.
I'm kind of with you.
But anywho, all these things are coming, either already in it or coming to Google Maps in the near future.
And let's not forget the new visuals.
Yes, the new visuals that were promised on both for the maps itself and I think on Android Auto.
I think you're right. I haven't seen them yet myself, but it'll be nice to see them.
Yeah, it was supposed to look like it had a new a tweaked design to it as well.
I think this is nothing more than a case of a long time ago, Google Maps was the king of the hill, and then Apple started beefing things up, and they really caught up with them quite nicely. Google's realized this, and I think they're saying we better get our things in order and do better yet. So as consumers, we're all going to win because both solutions are going to be better, and this is all.
I think so. I think that's true.
I think both map solutions they've really done well over the last 5 years compared to what they were.
Oh, no kidding. I'm with you.
Yep, and it's starting. One of my biggest pet peeves here was it's still not quite fixed on the browser version of the maps. But the lack of contrast in some of the roads and stuff. I just
Right.
brought it up
Especially
again.
shows up in Android Auto and even in CarPlay.
In the web, I was saying the web place at all. It's showing up too. But now I just fired it up. Now showing my area, and I can actually see all the streets at a level where I wasn't able to see it before.
That then.
Yep. So even the web version is starting to get better. So and it really has to, because the way I look at this here is for years and years and years we drove cars, we were using paper maps and things like that. Now our cars are starting to become a lot more like kind of like an aircraft, and we're going to have systems that assist us along the way to make traveling more convenient and safe.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
So
yeah, don't get me started, and I won't. But the piece of the puzzle that we're not solving yet is the automakers and their reluctance to incorporate good software in their navigation systems. They just suck at this.
It's very, very true. But could you imagine? Could you imagine us? A number of years ago, he said we're all used to doing paper maps back then. Yeah. Could you imagine now us thinking about not having our phones and having our navigation and having we can't even imagine traveling without it anymore.
Oh, very true. Very true.
So this has already changed quite a bit.
Absolutely horrible if you had.
And we're all old enough to remember those days when we took a family trip. We had a bag full of maps, a paper map.
Or the Rand McNally Atlas. Yeah.
Well, and you didn't know if you were doing a long trip. You didn't know what construction you were going to see. You didn't know any of that. You didn't. You just took a shot at the weather. You took a shot at the traffic. You took a shot at a lot of this stuff. It's amazing how much that we plan.
As I say, a great example of on my trip down and back to Roanoke on my way down. The normal way actually wasn't too bad, which is exactly what I took on the way back, which was I-581 to 81 to US 460. That went all the way up to I-77 in West Virginia and connected on up. Well, on the way down, it actually routed me around an accident on I-81.
There you go. See?
Not the way I really wanted to go. I probably would have just been fine with the delay because it went on Virginia S-curve highways, if you want to call them highways. But it still though got me in the Roanoke area though about the same time as it would have normally.
Well, and I find myself with a lot of these navigation apps, like when you said when there's a traffic reroute, it'll tell you, oh, you ought to do this. But what it really doesn't do is tell you what that means to you.
Yes.
They might say, oh, it's gonna take 10 minutes longer, but it doesn't really describe what it is. Because for all you know, you're gonna go through bad neighborhoods. And you don't know what the reroute is gonna do. So
or rough roads.
Or rough roads or any of this. And I still kind of hesitate when I get one of these reroutes because, well, explain to me what this means. I mean, you're telling me that there's this choice, but you don't tell me what it means yet. That's a next gen. That's kind of a next gen driven kind of feature that I don't think anybody is up to yet. But
and sometimes if you stay where you were, that the obstruction wasn't that bad.
Correct, and there's no way for you to know that. All you know is what is true at the moment that thing took its data snap. That's all you know. And it may no longer even be true by the time they tell you to take the reroute,
or by the time you get there,
or by the time you get up to where it is. Yeah, you don't know that, and I've had that happen. So the point is, we didn't have that, many years ago, and we didn't even have that to go by. Now we have this. Now I want them to go to the next step. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want them to take it further.
I'd like AI to really get involved with that a little bit.
That's something that AI can do a lot for us.
Yes.
I think it's appropriate. Yes. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, well, lots coming, I guess, from Google. Lots coming, I guess, from Google and from their updates of Google Maps, making it better.
And we appreciate it, Google. We appreciate
really
it. We really do.
We do. But there may be one thing that you don't appreciate too much. And speaking of uninstallable apps, I hear
Oh,
and
I will.
The OnePlus Open, ships with uninstallable or non-removable Facebook and Meta services. Chris,
Sort of.
Man.
Let's use the phrase sort of. I would say when you say non-removable, I would say that's by the average consumer. So what we're seeing on some devices, the OnePlus is a little more obvious than some. It's being seen on other devices. In this article that we linked to, you'll see people in the comments talk about seeing it on other devices. The problem that you run into is that they install services, hidden apps, if you will, for Meta and Facebook, for example. And there may be others, but these are the ones that get called out in this particular article. This was true a number of years ago, and OnePlus said, "Oh yeah, we'll stop doing that. We'll stop doing that," and they did for a while, and now they're reappearing. They're doing it again, and people are kind of going, "What are you doing?" You know. And so this is why. And the problem is with this particular set of apps. The story is apparently that these particular apps have system level rights. They can install things, they can uninstall things, they can send data back to Meta or whoever, all without asking your permission. And that's a problem. And so this particular article says they're not removed. You actually can remove them. Some people will say, well, you can just disable them. You can, but you don't know when you disable something if it really is disabled. You assume that it is, but it might not be because they didn't even tell you these apps were there in the first place. So, having said all that,
hard to trust.
This is also why people say things like, "Gee, all these phones have spyware." This is why that happens. Now, whether you actually consider this to be spyware or not is kind of not exactly the point.
Story, right.
But the thing is, the fact that this thing has the capability to doing this, that these apps are hidden from you. And that they're actually, again, you can use things like the Google developers think they're using their ADB function to uninstall these things. You can actually do an uninstall on these things. Again, assuming it actually does uninstall it, they get removed from the apps list in any event. So there are ways around it, but I don't think the average consumer is going to know how to do that. And I think it's unfortunate. Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate that again, some of these phone developers are putting this in. And maybe sending data back to Meta, maybe that's how they're helping keep their costs down. I don't know, but to do these kinds of things without asking me if I'm okay with that, I didn't give permission to that. Yeah, I mean, it's probably in the terms and agreements.
Microsoft does it too. I mean, that's the other thing too. Is Microsoft does it too with like I know, at least it's stopped reappearing, but like games like Candy Crush Saga were just automatically showing up on laptops. You uninstall it. And then it would all of a sudden reappear. It's like, wait a minute, I don't want Candy Crush on my laptop. First off, why would you play that on your laptop?
First of all,
even on your phone, Joel, even when you install it on your phone, these things send these games that you're getting for free. All do this. They all send data back to somebody about your device, and you give it permissions when you say, okay, when you ask, do you want to install this? They usually will say, we need these permissions. And you say, sure. What bothers me with these things are hidden. They're totally hidden. You don't even know they're there unless somebody else calls them out like this article did.
Well, I also want to say that in most cases, most people, they don't understand those permissions or what they're agreeing to.
No,
that's true. You're right.
No freaking idea.
But it's about giving them the
choice.
Some
lawyer
even if they don't read it. But even if they don't read it, you got to give them the choice. And when you don't give them the choice, people start screaming in the background, going, "What are you doing?" And that's kind of how I feel about this. It's like you didn't even present it to me, even if I'm too stupid to read the terms and agreement, and I agree to it anyway. You didn't even give me that choice.
Right?
You just did it.
Right.
I have a problem with that. So
I hear
so OnePlus is doing it again. If you read the comments, people are saying they've seen it on other phones, other devices. I can confirm I have seen it on another branded device. Some of the ones that the people said they saw it in the comments, I did not see it on those devices. So it's a mixed bag. You kind of need to look for it for yourself. They talk about how you can find them and you can look for them on your own device. And again, a lot of these will talk about how you can remove them if you want to take that effort, if you're worried about it and you're concerned. there are ways to get rid of them and clean them up a little bit. Having said that, even if you clean them up, they're likely to reappear the next time you install an update.
Sure.
So you may have to do this pretty regularly, but the point is you can. But you shouldn't have to, is what I'm getting at. You really shouldn't have to.
I agree.
It's unfortunate.
I agree.
So but we want to call it out as a service to our users. But
yeah.
you know,
I do not appreciate even and we'll get to this a little bit later, but even when Microsoft does this,
I agree,
taking them to task on that, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But there's a lot of this that goes on, and it just irritates the bejeebers out of me. Being bejeeberless is not a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would gather too that a lot of these things are you agree to allow them in the terms and conditions for using the device,
right?
And you don't realize it, and that's where it's
again, most people don't understand because they're not tech savvy. All right, or they don't.
I wish we were all smarter about this, but we're not.
That's true, and even and to tell you the truth, I mean, nobody reads through the long list of the licensing agreements and terms and conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Those things the print is usually very, very small, and the language is so
party of the first part,
right? It's so falutin that nobody can understand what the heck they're talking about. So again, that's just some lawyer somewhere trying to make certain that they've.
So again, as a service to our folks, to our listeners here, we're bringing up. Here we are again.
Yes.
Take a look for yourselves. Follow the links. Look at the articles. Yes. There's other articles out there on this as well, and there are some YouTube things out there to tell you how to remove some of this if you run into it. Just do a little searching. You're good to go.
Absolutely, and if you have issues or problems, you can always go ahead and jump on one of our. You can make comments on the website related to the week's podcast. You can send us email. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletter, get on the list, and even perhaps in the next month or two, there may be some other things that are offered via Patreon that may offer some level of help and relief. But before we even get to that whole thing, Larry, I hear tell that Google Tasks has come out with a web UI for calendar.
They really have. And while this may not be
let's get out of the mobile Linux segment with
this may not be a huge deal for everyone, and it doesn't warrant a long dissertation, but Google has implemented this as I think the culmination of a many years long hue and cry to improve Google Tasks. And over the past couple of years, I got to give Google credit. They have done an admirable job, a very good job of making Google Tasks a full-fledged GTD solution across all of the mobile platforms. But that's the only place it existed, except as a flyout on their web apps, like your calendar or Gmail. It was over there on the right side, tucked away, and you could make a little tiny box out of it, and that's as big as you could make it. But it was just lacking full-page implementation. And this will fill that void. And for those of us who use Google Tasks, and I have switched now, I've been on it about a year. Even when I was full Apple, I was using that. That is a wonderful, wonderful product.
Yeah.
I just, it's going to make it a fully and actual usable solution. I have Google Calendar as a web app, for example, in my Mac dock. And now, instead of using that little flyout on the side of the calendar, I'll be able to tap a button, the top right, when it launches. I haven't got it yet. I haven't got it. Some people have, but you'll tap a button. It'll give you a full page blow up of Google Tasks, and you can use it to your little heart's desire. So if you don't use Google Tasks, you can probably move along. There's not much else to see here, but for those of us, again, who use it, it's a great thing.
Larry, can I widen that attaboy a little bit in the sense that Google and their apps They've also given a lot of love to their large format devices with their apps and improved
Oh,
them.
they have. I agree with
so
you.
in general, I want to say that Google has shown some love to their own apps lately, and it's nice to see, especially when we keep hearing stories about Google abandoned this and they abandoned that.
We
nice
always
to see some
harp on
love.
what they put in the graveyard, but they do. You're right, Chris. They do a great job.
So I kind of want to broaden your attaboy just a little bit, because it's really good to call out the good stuff too, I think.
That's true, but that's really all there is to this, guys. And it doesn't. I don't know if you want to talk about it more, we can, but I don't think there's anything there really. It's just,
I don't have it yet, but I would definitely look forward to it. Yeah,
I've seen pictures of it and screenshots, and it looks really nice.
I don't use this particular app, but it certainly makes me want to look at it. Is where I'm getting with it.
I've looked at them
all their new looks have been great.
I will say this though, at least with tasks, there will be some way to tie it to a calendar event, which is more than you can do with Google Keep. So, which I do.
That's true. That's true. I still use Keep, but it's not tied to anything much.
Got it.
Yep.
That's good. I think I'm glad to hear this. This is good news.
You betcha. You betcha. So that will end our mobile Linux segment. Hi, this is Christopher Spera with iTechGear.org, and I'm here to tell you that iTechGear.org and the iTechGear Weekly are on Patreon. Patreon is a platform for creators, allowing them to express their creative side in an organized, marketable fashion and earn a living or create a really cool kind of side hustle. You can create a community around your hobby of choice. You can gain followers. You can get members and supporters all along the way. You can create subscription products that for a pledged amount every month, you'll provide to your members and followers. Setup is easy. Prices are reasonable, and you can have your pledges auto-deposited into an account of your choice every month. With iTechGear.org, our initial offering is a monthly newsletter for just $3 a month. This is our initial offering, and we'll have other tiers and other products and other offers up in the coming months. Become a patron of our site. Grow with us, and we'll provide you with the tech understanding that you're missing right now. Join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/iTechGear. That's www.patreon.com/iTechGear. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 68. I want to go ahead and get us into our Windows segment. And, I had mentioned a few moments ago, before we took a little break there, that Microsoft was another one of those folks that had, prevented people from uninstalling some components and out of Windows 11 and maybe even Windows 10. But I understand now that you can uninstall Edge, Bing, and disable ads in Windows 11.
Well, you can, and before we even talk about that, also we've sort of bashed Microsoft in the past, rightfully, I think, about adding things to the operating system that we don't want. So I don't know if they'll be restricted in that because of these same things that we're about to discuss or not. But regardless, at long last, Microsoft will finally let their users uninstall Edge, Bing, and they'll be able to disable ads on Windows 11 as Microsoft complies with the Digital Markets Act. So according over to the folks at Windows Central, they have published that Microsoft has a new blog post detailing just how Windows 11 will be made compliant with the Digital Markets Act, a European Economic Area. Now, that doesn't necessarily include us. So in a few minutes, when we start hashing this out, maybe we should talk about how this applies to those folks, how it applies to us. But right now, they have made several changes to the operating system, which now allow users to choose between browser providers, and they can uninstall most. It doesn't say, their post says the word most. I went and looked at it. Inbox apps. So that means they can still put some stuff on there that probably they won't rip off, and they'll figure out a way to say that it's absolutely necessary that we have it. The biggest changes, I think, come in the form of the ability to uninstall Edge. A lot of people don't like Edge. I mean, it's not a bad browser, but the problem with Edge is I think Microsoft did it all wrong. When they first brought out Edge, it was in your face, full of crap, all this MSN news plastered all over it, Bing rewards, the new you can't get rid of Bing. It was like a kaleidoscope of crap in your face. Whereas Chrome, when you launch Chrome, it says, hi, Chrome browser, search bar, that's it, nothing else. Even Chrome doesn't do the things that Microsoft does.
Part of the problem is not so much the browser. All right. It's the Microsoft services that go along with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which are tied to all those pieces of crap.
Which is interesting that you bring that up, Larry, because a lot of us went to Edge because it was Chromium without all the layers that Chrome was throwing at us. We went there for a lighter, faster experience, right?
Right.
And then we ended up with if you go to their title page or their dump page, you're getting dumped into the chum bucket.
Right. It's just flashing neon signs everywhere.
It's incredibly, it's unavoidable. Now, the original Edge that was not Chromium based didn't have this crap.
That's true.
But it was a whole nother platform and had its own challenges.
It was actually
and on and on and on.
Still window or
Internet Explorer. It was still sort of, but I get you. And so it had its own set of challenges. But this thing, we thought, you went to Chromium. This is great. We're going to have a clean, fast browser. And we did for a little while, for a very little while. And now we've got the chum bucket again.
Don't hold your breath.
But let's talk about how this is implemented per region. I'm not sure that we here in the good old USA are going to be able to easily remove these things.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be checkboxes in the EU because I don't think it's been implemented yet, correct?
No, not yet.
It's coming. So you're supposed to be able to do like checkboxes to undo certain things. You're going to be able to turn off some of the advertising. You're going to be able to remove some of the apps. It doesn't sound like we're getting a whole lot of that by default here in the US.
No, we're not.
But I think, Chris, you and I were talking, and I think you said maybe there's a workaround to some of that. Or will be a workaround.
And we are going to cover that workaround on iTechGear.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it is not the most straightforward process. There are some, standard process things to do, and then there are some registry hacks that you have to make. So unfortunately in the US, it's not as easy as it's going to be in the European Union, where you just get a couple of check boxes, dink, 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 and Windows does the rest.
Do you guys know, are they, when they implement this going forward, is it going to be that we get the same version of Windows that they do? It's just that it will detect that it will detect where you are and disable certain things, or is it that we're actually getting different versions of Windows?
No, I think forked versions rely on location services, and then
gotcha.
or the country that you choose, right?
Maybe we just travel to Europe, log in with our Windows machines, turn off those features, and then fly back.
Yeah. Gene Roddenberry in Transporter Technology, where are you when we need you? Interestingly enough, though, I think this is going to be it's going to be regional, and I think it's when you first set up Windows, this is all based on the region that you choose. One of the very first setup steps Windows asks you is, all right, where do you live? Where are you at? All right. Then what language and what keyboard layout do you want to use? All right. I think that will be partially what drives all this, but it's not just Microsoft that has to comply with some of these things. The Digital Markets Act, or the DMA, set a bunch of rules and criteria for large online platforms to adhere to in European Union markets. All right. The goal is to ensure that end users have freedom to choose the services they want on whatever platform they wish to use. All right. And you're not locked
that should be
into anything
interesting.
specific, which is really kind of nice. But I know that from a capitalist perspective, I mean, they want to throw those ads to you. They want to lock you in so that
Sure.
you are stuck seeing their ads, using their services, and paying their fees. So, but it's not just Microsoft that has to adhere to this. This is Google, Apple, going to be Amazon, Facebook, or Meta. All of those folks are going to be roped into this kind of thing and be required to comply with the DMA. So it's not just
it's going to be interesting over the next couple of years to see how that plays out, because I know there's already been conversations about the Apple Store and the Play Store being problematic because Google restricts who gets those and who doesn't. I mean, who gets the Google Play Store anyway, and Apple certainly doesn't have another choice today. So I know all of those kinds of things come into play with this legislation that they have.
Right.
It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out in the next few years.
I agree, and ultimately this whole thing in the European Union, the DMA, is to ensure that users always have choices in the software and services that they use, which would really be nice to have everywhere, not just in the EU, but everywhere. But of course, the lawmakers here are going to go ahead, if they even try to do something like this here. I really have to say that the lawmakers in the European Union appear to be a little bit more tech savvy than the old farts that we have.
Sometimes
corrupt old farts that we have.
We have some young farts up there too that don't get it.
And to be honest with you, I don't know that the EU folks get it a lot of the times either. No. Sometimes the reasons they make for their decisions don't seem to be in line with what the technical experts say is important.
Right, which is why I said seems, right? The thing that bothers me though with our legal and governmental systems here is I know that there's going to be lobbies that will influence lawmakers.
Sure.
And they will have their votes bought, or the lawmaker will sell their vote to the highest bidder, as opposed to doing what their constituents want. But anyway,
right.
That's I'm just kvetching. All right. That's just me being cranky. So get off my lawn. But it would be nice.
Yeah.
Don't
it would be nice.
Yes.
It really would.
But it is interesting to see this is going to be an option, but not for us.
No, well, it will be, but
not directly.
Have to jump through the hoops. We'll have something on the site related to this so that everybody who wants to go ahead and do this can do this. The one thing that really bothers me about Edge, you go to because Edge is the only browser that you have when you initially install Windows 11. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to go get Chrome, and I want to get all of my bookmarks and favorites and passwords and whatever else that I've got stored through that whole system. And Edge is like, hey, you don't have to go there. We can do all those things. And they really want
pops up in your face 10 times a day.
Pop-ups and banners and other things that say, don't go. And I'm like, look, you just go. Don't make me turn this computer around. Okay.
I have to be honest with you, there are days where I go, as a person who goes back and forth between Windows and Mac, I really wish sometimes Safari was still on Windows. I mean, much better app than it ended up being, but because it's so much cleaner, and I don't go through these layers. I don't put up with the bloat and the goofiness of Chrome and the security holes in Chrome, and I don't put up with the problems with Edge. And not to say that it doesn't have its own challenges. I get that.
No, it does. It does.
But sometimes I'd rather be able to at least have that choice. But there you go.
I agree. It would be nice. There's a Beach Boys song in there somewhere. Anyway,
wouldn't it be nice? Yes.
Yes. You know what would also be nice? As if Western Digital
some
has
truth,
some failures.
out of Western
Didn't
Digital.
have this
That was
freaking design flaw that they've got, right? I mean,
Hey,
Western Digital is a big, huge supplier of storage devices.
yeah, and
Larry,
they
what's this
SanDisk.
about? What's all this
Well,
about?
I'll tell you what
What's
it's about. It's about to make me upset because I'm kind of close to this. I own a couple of their very expensive drives, and I don't think that what we're hearing here, it's really the tip of the iceberg. I think they're trying to put closure on this past year of turmoil with SanDisk USB drive failures. I don't think, from what I've read, that we actually know the rest of the story. We know what the mothership, being Western Digital, wants
there's
us
a Paul
to
Harvey
know.
in there somewhere. Here's the rest of the story.
For a good part of 2023, I mean, SanDisk did undergo a whole lot of they had a cloud of uncertainty over them. Users stopped buying their products due to the many documented failures of their USB hard drives. Again, I own 2 of them. So while a lot of people who were pro SanDisk and pro Western Digital, they raised the BS flag in defense of SanDisk, but I say we need to pull the flag back down the flagpole.
For a long time, SanDisk made some of the best SD kind of cards out there, and I think that's part of why people felt betrayed by all of this.
Right.
You know, because then they seemed, as soon as they had any kind of problems, they seemed to be very disingenuous
and I think
about what was going on.
That may have been, I don't know how long SanDisk has been owned by Western Digital. Maybe they were a better company before then. I don't know, but when at least they and Western Digital took ownership of the problem, but that's it. They're taking this more to come later. We don't really know yet. Just stand by. Well, we never heard any more about it after it first happened. And a lot of people went and bought other kinds of drives. But now, according to the folks over at Digital Trends, we may finally have a little closure. But even at that, it's not real closure because we don't know.
I'm a little concerned. Unlike you, Larry, I have some of those drives that are in question as well. And what bothers me is that I have an older one that is not listed, and yet some people seem to say that model has problems too, but that's not included in this list that they say has
Did you
this
get
flaw,
the
and it
firmware
bothers
update?
me.
Did you get a firmware update for it?
I tried to, and it recognized
Mine both
my newer
updated,
one.
So I don't know, but
so I have 2. I have 2. One was again listed as included in this firmware update that didn't really fix things according to other people, but the other one is older, and it was not included, and so the firmware update did not function on the older one. Yet some people say the older ones had problems, but some people say no, that's not true. And I'll be honest, I have not had either one fail, but I've been real hesitant to use them. I actually have gone and taken and made backups to a mechanical drive just to make sure I had copies of that data, because I don't trust them now. That's the bigger problem.
And if you don't trust it, why have it? I mean, that's bad.
Right.
And similar, what bothers me a lot about this is similar to another company we know out on the West Coast in California that lives in a city that starts with a C. The fix of many of their problems is very quietly applied via software updates or firmware updates, and then all of a sudden we slowly forget the problem because it's working again. And I hate that tactic, but I think this may be the case here.
It might.
I would feel better if I think the statements need to be clearer. I think they need to explain to those of us who have the older models, where do we really stand? I don't think it's been as forthcoming as it should be.
Only a few $100 a piece, but damn it,
but what's my data worth?
It's our
what's
data.
my data worth? Yeah, that's
your data is important. Those are your pictures and your memories and your and your whatever's that you want to be able to go ahead and hang on to, maybe pass down to your kids or whatever. Or
I'll be honest, I've tossed mine aside. I still have them, but I don't use them.
Their heyday is hey done.
I have changed to all Samsung drives, and they have a good rep too. So,
Well, I seem to be kind of in the same camp as Chris. I have the Extreme Portable, but not the Pro version. But I have the Extreme Portable, but the 1 terabyte, which isn't on this list. But I have not had a problem with it. So I mean, and I've had it.
You're
for
probably just
a couple
fine,
years.
Joel.
Yep. I mean, and or whatever it was a firmware update release for this one. I have the cheaper one. Sometimes buying the more expensive one isn't
But it's
necessarily the
kind of
best
like you go buy
idea.
this car. Let's
but-
say you buy a car from Ford,
Right.
for instance, and then all of a sudden this notice comes out that says, "Hey, you could driving down the road one day, your brakes could fail. We don't know quite how to fix them yet, but they could fail." Well, how do you feel from that point on? Like you don't want to use that
Get
car.
me the hell out of this car.
That car, right?
All right.
Right.
My grandchildren aren't going to come anywhere near it. My kids aren't going to come
No.
anywhere near it. Here, honey, take the keys.
Well,
to your
and,
car
and
now.
for me, the old one and the new ones all look the same.
They-
So
they
And it's
why,
true.
why
They
would
do,
I,
actually,
why would,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
why would I trust? Why would I trust that your fix
Exactly.
only really needs to be for the newer one?
Exactly.
You wouldn't.
You
I
haven't-
wouldn't.
Yeah,
You know, you haven't explicitly said mine isn't impacted. You haven't explicitly said that. So now what? That
Right.
frustrates me.
back
It'll
in the
certainly make me think about which one I'm going to buy next.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
back in the day, if you guys remember that whole problem that Apple had with the wall warts, right? Their 20-watt wall
Yep.
warts,
Yep.
they were catching on fire, right? Or they were causing some irreversible damage to iPods and iPhones back in the day. And what they did was they sent those folks that had them, they sent you if you registered, they sent you a free wall wart in the mail, or you could go to the Apple store, I believe, and you could turn in your malfunctioning wall wart for a free one or something. You could get them at the Apple store. But the only difference was a small little green dot on the front or the back end of the wall wart.
You
That's
know,
the only way
it
that you
was
could tell the
fixed.
difference. But they looked exactly the same.
But
Except
you
for-
knew it was fixed. That's the difference.
Yeah. But,
Right.
and that's the whole idea. I wish they would do something like that.
Or
You
if
know?
SanDisk could just say, "Hey, send us this back, or we'll give you a new one," or something
Yes,
a little
I
more
agree.
definitive.
I agree. It would be nice. Again, there's that Beach Boy song. All right. To have them look, I would just rather you tell me, hey, look, we screwed up. All right. We're very sorry. We made a mistake. Here's the replacement.
I can deal with that.
You know, here
Yep.
you go. We
That's-
fixed the problem. You know, here, this is what the problem was. We've fixed it. Here's your replacement. This is how you can tell the good from the bad. All right.
Yeah.
Be upfront about it. Now, I know Wall Street gets nervous about that because nobody ever wants to admit that they did something wrong. Because all of
True
a
enough.
sudden, then everybody who is anybody who has money anywhere is going to go ahead and take all of their money away from that thing and go do something else with it. All right. Which I think is stupid. All right.
You know, it's these kind of customer.
People that have money have
customer-
absolutely, they have the worst fear in the world, and that is, losing that money. All right. There
There
are
you
a
go.
whole bunch of us out here who don't have any. All right. Who know what it is to live without money, and we're not afraid
Yeah.
of losing it. All right. Your life is going
Just
to be
give me
a hell of a
something that
lot
works.
better, and if you're not afraid of losing it. But that's just me. All right. I don't know.
You're always losing it. Let's
Thank
move
you.
on.
That's true. That's true. Hey, you know who else? You know what
Mhm.
else happened that got lost?
That's losing it.
That's losing it. OpenAI told their CEO recently, get lost.
I
Right?
think
In a
he's up
Zoom
there.
call.
He's typing in the AI chat box. How do I save my butt?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Dave. I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
That's right.
And apparently, they went ahead and he was let go by the board. The president of OpenAI also looks at them and says, yeah, I got your CEO right here. And now apparently, from what I understand, that's the CEO may return. Chris,
Oh, this is
What
such
the
a
hell?
complicated. I
What
think
the
it's a
hell?
complicated
This is a
story,
soap
and it's
opera.
getting. So it is a soap opera. It's a Silicon Valley soap opera. So OpenAI, is the whole ChatGPT thing, and Microsoft has lots of money invested, and apparently this thing went down, and went down in a Zoom call, and they basically fired the CEO over a Zoom call. The board of directors did.
Happy
The
Monday.
understanding there's a lot of rumors. It was late in the week. There's a lot of rumors still going on around about why and how. The short form is it appears to be some kind of disagreement between the approach taken by the CEO and the chief scientific officer, who also happens to be one of the co-founder kind of people in the organization. So for whatever reason, it seems like it might have been that Altman, who was the CEO, wanted to go forward with things at a faster rate, maybe a little more aggressively and assertively than some of his compatriots who wanted to take a more measured approach, making sure that we're not doing the wrong thing by people. That's the story. That we may find out that that's not what it was at all as we go forward. I want to be clear on that because, again, this is very fluid right now. It's still happening. But as it went on, not only so he was let go, and then the president of the company quit
in retaliation to that, in support.
Correct. In support of the CEO quit. That at least that's what it appears as to why he quit.
Sure.
And Microsoft apparently was taken completely surprised by this. They had no idea this was coming on, going down, and they had just had a meeting with the CEO like the day before,
right?
And so nobody had any clue this was happening. And now apparently there's shareholder pressure against the board saying, yeah, we don't feel really comfortable that you got rid of this guy that was making us money, and now we want you to bring him back. And so some stories say that some of the stories are saying that, some of the stories are saying that he's now considering the return. So I don't know really where that stands, because that was sort of one of the latest and greatest flip-flops in this whole kind of debacle. But why is this important? Because it may have a lot to do with it. If it has to do with the quote unquote morality of how they're doing what they're doing, and I use that term very, very, very broadly. Are we taking consideration people or not? If that's the case, it could have larger impacts in the industry.
I agree.
That's kind of where I'm going.
I agree. I think that they didn't like the direction he was taking the company, and they didn't like his vision for the AI and what it could and could not do, what it would and wouldn't do, and they're like, yeah, you're out. And
but the question is, what does that mean? What aspect of that? That's what we don't know for sure.
Which way was he leaning? Was he on the conservative side, or was he on the
I got the impression. I got the impression he was actually being the more aggressive one.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
That's what the stories seem to imply. But you know what? This is new. This is fresh. This could all be wrong. But the point is, there was some kind of disagreement, and this is like one of the biggies in terms of AI right now. And these guys are all in upheaval, and Microsoft has billions or whatever invested in all this. Or millions.
But if that's true, I can't blame the board for maybe what they did, because
they might. Right. We don't know yet. And but the point is I'm making is that this is going to impact a lot as to how AI goes forward, because they're one of the big players. No matter what the reasoning was, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I think as we go forward, more of these details will start to come out, and it'll actually make more sense as to who are the players and why is this happening, and what is this really going to look like. This isn't just,
and maybe it was just an internal clash and it'll go away. Who knows?
It might be, and that would come out too if that's the case. But it could potentially be a really big mess for AI going forward for the short term. But it's interesting that this all happens in the same week that Microsoft made all of its announcements about how its AI is going to be in everything, and their AI is dependent on this company. So it makes for a really interesting mess, no matter how you slice it up.
No, I totally agree. This is
interestingly, just a quick injection here, just for food for thought. I know I won't mention any names because it's just not right to do that, but I know the owner of a medium-sized software company, national, almost a household name, and they were almost ready to inject AI into their product, and they have over the past couple of months decided that might not be a good thing to do. So they pulled back, and they've just said, we're not ready yet. And I think a lot more companies are going to look at this. Of course, at Microsoft's level, no, because they have a whole different vision here. But I'm just talking about general use of AI by companies, by individuals. It was a fad, maybe a lot of people thought, and now people are afraid of it, and people are just a little bit concerned, I think.
Right.
Well, we don't know what they're doing with it, right? And we
we
already
don't.
know we already know that it makes
And we
mistakes.
don't know where
There's
they're getting their info, really.
There's a lawsuit right now against United Healthcare about that says that their AI was making coverage decisions for people, and it was wrong 90% of the time. Now this was just a lawsuit. This is their argument, right? But the point is, if they were using AI to make some of those decisions, this starts to become life safety kind of questions that you're asking if they're actually using it in that capacity.
Exactly.
And so this whole notion that AI can still make a lot of mistakes potentially is something that we have to be aware of. And at least, if nothing else, you need to slow down enough to ask the human questions behind it. And they're not doing that. And if they're not doing that, that's a problem. And that's what this might be about.
They aren't. And I know that there are a lot of companies and organizations out there that are jumping on this AI train, that are making decisions. I mean, I know that there are a lot of companies that are making hiring decisions based on AI input from an AI, which candidates they interview or examine or whatever.
And
all right.
And we've certainly read these stories about Microsoft Start, their news front end, and the front end that we see in that we just got done talking about in Edge. It's a lot of those articles are AI generated, and they're garbage, and they're finding there's a lot of mistakes and misinformation. And gee, what a surprise! This is stuff, guys, that we all talked about a long time ago. We all mentioned this.
Yes,
and we've had this conversation.
Right. And Google, like, for example, just today, I was doing a Google search on a specific subject out of a movie. All right. And this is something that they should get 100% right, because, hey, it's already been indexed, right? When a movie came out, the movie was gung ho, and it told me that the movie came out in 1996 in the AI answer. And I'm like, hold the phone. That's a decade off. So I mean,
and the point is, we've had this conversation, and it's not even about bias. We could have a whole other we could have a whole other several-hour chat just on the subject,
which
of bias.
Also comes to play. But yes,
but I don't. But the point I'm getting at is, even with raw facts, if they're not getting things right today, these conversations are very important to have. And if that's driving what's happening to this company potentially, we need to pay attention to that.
It's kind of funny you should say that, Chris. I mean, that United Healthcare thing is really super important, and you take that down to even a much smaller scale. I've actually done this with ChatGPT in my own account. I don't, I use it occasionally to fact check something I've written, or to grammar check it, or whatever. And if you put the exact same, copy paste it right into the chat window up there, and you say, okay, fact checked and grammar check the following article. Do a space and then paste in the article. Do that 3 times in a row. You'll get 3 different answers from the same ChatGPT.
Oh, sure.
So don't tell me that it's infallible, because it is not.
Oh, it's not. It's clearly not.
None of them are.
Right.
And that kind of a solution should not be tied to healthcare.
Remember, they're all based, whether you're using Google's AI, whether you're using OpenAI's products, whether you're using any of these products, they're all based on information they got by trolling the internet.
True.
Yep.
And guess what? The internet's full of crap. It just is. It really is.
It really is.
If you're gonna build something based on crap, you're gonna get crap. I'm sorry, guys. That's
garbage in, garbage out. Nothing's changed much, has it?
Nothing's changed.
Yep.
We learned this years ago, and we're still doing this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that, kids, is basically the show. I want to go ahead and move us to our pick of the week segment. But before I do, I want to remind everybody that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we have individually purchased and actually use and like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements, kids. These aren't even things that we have an affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org indicates that we have to let you guys know that up front before we tell you about the pick. Honestly, these are just things that we really believe in, and we want to bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome.
And Larry, you've got the pick.
I do have the
Ooh.
pick, and we wish that Samsung were paying us a boatload of money, don't we?
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm telling you, there'd be
smartwatches
everywhere. Let's talk
my
about
my pick this week is the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 Classic in the specifically the silver version. But first, a very brief moment of humble honesty here. Ever since Apple Watch made its first debut, I have considered it the only smartwatch option for me. I was wrong. I probably would have realized that a little sooner, but I was.
Wait. How was that again?
I said I was wrong about
Thank
the
you.
Apple Watch. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I would have realized this sooner, but I was a total captive of Apple's walled garden.
There you
But
go.
if you use an Android phone, even if it's not your daily driver, this watch, powered by watchOS version 4, is a very compelling thing to buy.
Sure.
And we talk about picks up here that may cost $10 sometimes. A couple of three have cost thousands of dollars, but this is a very modestly priced, medium priced thing. It starts out at $316 for the Wi-Fi version, I think 46, yeah, or
369. You said.
Okay, yeah, 360. I don't have it in front of me, but
369.
anyway, it's pretty reasonably priced. And our own Chris Spera has long lauded the many, many features and benefits of this watch, especially the face collections available for it, and actually for any Wear OS watch. And you know what? Now I get it. I understand why he said those things. This is a gorgeous piece of stainless steel. It's got a sapphire crystal display. This year it has a redesigned turnable bezel that's just, and there's something about manually turning a bezel on a watch to interact with it that enhances the user experience. And I didn't realize that either until I had it. I said, well, I can put my finger on the cheap plastic one. I can move my finger around, do the same thing. No, you can't. Not same as
a completely different experience.
And the stock faces that come with this watch are very, very nice. But once you start looking at what's really available out there, you'll be blown away by the quality of the graphics and the multitude of complications that these developers put into these little things. They can't be making much money, but there's got to be a lot of work in that. My God.
No, a lot of watch faces are provided by folks that really enjoy what they're doing. Most watch faces
free stuff
will cost anywhere between 99 cents to a couple of bucks, right?
And they're not selling millions of these.
No,
things.
they aren't. They're if they're selling hundreds, they're selling a lot. All right,
but they're absolutely gorgeous.
Some of them are really compelling, but again, you've got to watch. Meaning you've got to be careful. As far as the faces are concerned, because there was one thing that Chris Gavula said that I thought was very, very telling, is that
wait, say that again.
Say that again.
Thank you. It's very, very telling.
From earlier.
Yes, and I deserve that one, but that's okay. So you were right, and I'll say it again. You were right. A lot of these faces are packed with information, and depending on the size of the watch face, all right, they're going to be hard to read. So if you're nearsighted, all right,
that's somewhat true, but I think
if you're wearing bifocals or you're older, you're going to have an issue seeing the small text on the screen. All right, there is that, and there is a lot of things that are jam-packed, but they're gorgeous. Some of these,
but even on those, Chris, I found that if you go through the step through the font changes and that Samsung's put into that, They do a really good job of still
do.
retaining the majority of the information and making
They
it
do.
readable for those with have vision
Mhm.
impairment.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing the Apple Watch at all. I still have the Series
No.
8. I love it. It's a great watch, and it's got a couple of features that I now have to live without. I don't get the fall detection and all that, but at this moment, I still feel like it will be a very long time before that Apple Watch is on my wrist again full time, you know. There's
Yeah.
a link in the show notes to this watch on Samsung's website, as that's where you can actually first buy it, sometimes a bit cheaper. And it's always on sale there first before they turn it loose to their family of retailers like Best Buy and Amazon and all those others. So
Exactly.
I actually got this watch 2 or 3 days before it went on sale at Best Buy.
Mhm.
And they've sent it to me via Best Buy as one of their sales distributors. So the best purchase point, I think, is actually on Samsung. You have a much longer return period where Best Buy gives you only 2 weeks. Here you get a full month. And you know, you can also apply one of many discounts if you buy it on Samsung. If you're an educator, you can buy it, or you work for an education company like Joel does, you can get that discount. If you're government or military, active duty or retired, or a first responder or work in the medical industry. So there's a lot of ways that you can get about 10% off on this, or anything they sell actually. And the shipping time was like 2 days, so you can't beat that. So all in all, I am extremely happy with it. I did, of course, get a nice metal band, and I actually picked the same one without knowing that Chris has on his watch, and I love that watch band too.
Yeah, you know, it's really, really a
Great,
nice
great
watch.
product, a lot of quality, more readable than I thought it would be, and it just feels nice.
Absolutely, it does. And
That's it.
I will tell you that in many cases, if you when you buy directly from Samsung, um, you buy anything from Samsung,
They're
you're
a good
automatically
company.
enrolled in
They
their
really are a good company.
they are. You're automatically enrolled in their rewards program when you buy something from them. They will give you cash back or they will give you some kind of monetary based reward or certificate that you can use on a future purchase.
That's true, but you know, I want to give one more quick shout out on the show here to something that Chris Gavula said. Oh, it's been months ago, but maybe even over months or a year ago. Chris, you once told us, and we were talking about Wear OS or something. No, we were talking about Samsung's product, Galaxy. You said, you know, you will get used to some of the things that are in One UI, both on the phone and the watch. And you were absolutely right. I am the first thing I did when I got both the Samsung Galaxy phone and the watch is I stripped everything I could that was One UI off of it and put the Google version on it. You know what? I'm going back. I'm walking all that back, and one by one, I'm finding the clocks better, this is better, or the email apps better. You were absolutely dead on that.
Man, twice in one night. What am I going to do with myself?
Oh my God. Lottery ticket.
There you go. There you go.
I bought one last night and lost. So what did that do?
Yeah, well.
Well,
Should have done
somebody
it
probably
tonight.
didn't lose.
Well, that's the show for this week. This has been the iTechGear Weekly episode number 68. My package has a first name. Recorded live Sunday, November 19th, 2023 for Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, Mr. Chris Gavula, and Brother Joe McLaughlin. I want to say that we will see you next time.